Representative Janet Buckner is to be with us today. And I don't see Janet on just yet. So as we wait for Janet, I want to first ask, does anyone not have your blue book? Did anyone not get your I can't see my blue book there. Did anyone not get your blue book? Everybody got it? Yes, no, maybe so. So we're going to keep an eye on that. And then, of course, spend some time talking about the ballot.
So if anyone doesn't have a hard copy of the blue book, I put a link in the chat just now. And if you click on that link, it'll take you to a website and you can see the issues for the state of Colorado as well as the city of Denver from that link.
All right. So while we're waiting on Janet and Cleo, I'm going to turn to my friend and colleague, Naomi. Naomi is a part of the Climate Action Task Force in the city of Denver. There is an initiative on the ballot to help fund climate action in the city. And so while we're waiting for Janet to log in and Cleo to get connected, I'm going to ask Naomi to go ahead and share if she would. Is that okay, Naomi? Good? Yeah. Yeah, amen. About the Climate Action Initiative. So we'll turn over now to Naomi.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much, Eugene. Or I feel like I should say Pastor Downing. I'm going to be formal. So I'm going to share my screen. I hope folks can see this, and I will also work with the team to share this PowerPoint if that's helpful. Can you all see my screen? Thumbs up or... Okay, I see a thumbs up. Thank you. All right. So just a little bit about me. I served on the task force on behalf of a coalition called the Denver Streets Partnership. And I'm just generally really excited to talk to you all about this opportunity that we all have to really do some good work to help in addressing the impacts that our changing climate is having, not only across Colorado, but really here in Denver. And so one thing I will say, and I shared this with Pastor Downing before, is I was listening to his sermon as I was preparing for this, this talk, and just the things that he brought up about struggles and building resilience. And it really struck home to me and was really something that we, as the task force, kept in mind as we were trying to do this work and figure out what are ways that we can address our changing climate that's not going to impact the people that are already disproportionately impacted because of climate change. So I say all that to frame, that's kind of how we were thinking when we came up with these ideas. So I'm going to talk you through just generally how climate impact is having, the impact that climate change is having right now, some of the policy solutions that the task force developed, and then the issue before all voters in Denver, which is Measure 2A, which would be a sales tax to help fund the work to address climate change. These slides before you really touch on how our world is changing. It's hotter than normal. It's hotter than it should be right now in October, but the changing in climate is really having an impact on how natural disasters are playing out. You see the fires to the right, and everyone has felt it in the air and seen the smoke and is feeling it firsthand. And so our climate is changing, and we are feeling those impacts here in Colorado and in Denver, and as well as across the globe. The one really exciting thing to share is the city of Denver did convene a stakeholder group. Eugene and I were really fortunate to participate in this 6-month process that really centered on how can we develop a plan to make sure that the city of Denver is resilient and has the tools and resources to adapt and really prevent more impacts because of climate change. And so the group that is before you is representative of different industries, from conservation to oil and gas, to young adults and individuals representing the Black, Indigenous, and people of color communities. We met for 6 months to put together almost 336 recommendations to reduce Denver's climate impact. And so we're really excited. We can definitely also share, if anyone is interested, the report. There is an executive summary if people don't want to read the 106-page report, but it gives a good summary, and I'm going to touch on some of the things that were in that report. So our task force broke down our recommendations into 5 different issue areas. electric supply, which really touches on the way in which our energy is generated, and trying to find cleaner options, looking at solar power, making the process right now of creating energy a cleaner way that isn't creating more pollution, looking at how we can reduce the impacts of transportation, you know, by investing in our bus system and looking at other ways to get people either moving in a way that is more clean, or just, you know, investing in electric vehicle options and ensuring there's incentives and supports for people that want to make that transition to buying electric vehicles. We also looked at solutions around buildings and homes. So how can we, there's a term called retrofit, but really just make updates to all different types of buildings in Denver to make sure that they are reducing the amount of emissions that are coming from everyday things that people do in buildings, whether it be in your homes, in businesses. So just really looking at the ways we can make our buildings more efficient. Waste and consumption too is a really critical piece. So how can we foster more recycling and people using a process called composting, all of the different kind of approaches to reduce the impacts that are coming from the waste that comes from our everyday lives. And then resilience and adaptation really focuses on how can we plan for the future, knowing what we know as we think about impacts of natural disasters, new construction. How can we build a fund to make sure that we're more resilient and investing in, for example, individuals that want to make a transition into jobs that are more focused in the clean energy sector. So really trying to make sure there's supports in place for people that want to make those transitions in their work, in the way that they live, that will support less harmful pollution and energy that's impacting our climate. So I'm going to run through these a little bit quickly, but just want to touch on a little bit more of those key points. So when we say energy supply, as I mentioned before, we're looking at funding solutions that'll help make the way that Denver produces electricity a lot cleaner, making sure the buildings that the city operates, so like our city government buildings, are powered by renewable energy, or energy that is not creating more carbon, you know, creating more spaces for community solar gardens so that we are harnessing the sun and creating energy that is not going to have wasteful impacts on our communities. And then working with Xcel Energy on implementing some strategies that the state has outlined to improve our energy use, and making sure that Denver is a leader and adopting those changes quickly. So transportation is the space that I was able to co-lead in our climate work group, and I was really fortunate to work with Eugene on this. We really tried to identify what are approaches that we can take to make it easier for people to get around Denver, get to where they need to go, but not necessarily have to rely on their car. So really looking at how can we ensure that our bus system is going to the neighborhoods it needs to, running enough lines, enough buses so that people can get to where they're going, looking at also solutions around, you know, building out bike lanes and sidewalks, especially in neighborhoods where they haven't been as invested in, to ensure that people can get to the places they need to go safely, but also without have to necessarily use their car. There are some other modes of transportation that are evolving, like one thing that is getting to be popular, but not as necessarily as accessible in Denver, are electric bikes. So, you know, could we support a system around electric bike shares? So if someone needs to take a short trip to the grocery store, they could maybe rent a bike as opposed to just driving their vehicle by themselves. We also were looking at, you know, ideas around policy. So maybe working with companies to incentivize work from home, shuttle services, just ways so that their employees can get to work in a way that isn't going to necessarily result in them having to drive in their individual car. Oop, my slide didn't move as I was talking. Sorry, you all. There we go. Okay, buildings and homes. So this section of the task force's report really looks at how we can update building codes, how we can implement new performance standards, really just looking at the processes to ensure that as new buildings are being built, they're built more efficiently. As existing buildings are being updated, they're using clean energy standards, or just types of approaches to ensure that they're promoting less emissions. We also really wanted to make sure that there were some ideas around affordable housing. So as affordable housing projects are being built, how can we build in safeguards for those that are building those venues so that there are less impacts on the air quality that people are experiencing. So just ensuring that these types of ideas around clean energy are being implemented, especially in affordable housing projects. Oop, well done. Okay. I'm going to move along so I'm not taking too much time. Okay. Consumption and waste really looks at how can we incentivize recycling, how can we make sure that multifamily housing options are built, have options for people to recycle, because we know it can be a barrier. It can just take a long time to do that because it's not easily accessible for you to literally just drop off those things you want to recycle. So just trying to make sure we have those safeguards in place for people to make that choice easier. And then, as I talked about before, adaptation and resiliency, really trying to create a plan to harness all of these other ideas and ensure that we have the resources to support future efforts. One thing that's a really interesting fact is we were able to work with some, I don't want to call them scientists, but they're individuals that can help us project all of the different costs if we don't do anything, don't take any action. And because of their analysis, there is an estimated cost of $20 billion if we don't do anything. So these are the costs to just address fires, the cost to help treat individuals that are having disproportionate impacts because of air quality. So really looking at, if we do nothing, here's what it's going to cost the city to address all of the bad things that might come because of not taking a step around climate change. So the measure before you is Prop 2A for Denver voters, and it would be a 0.25% sales tax increase. And the money that would be generated from this sales tax would go into a fund that is only designated to help pay for the recommendations that came from the task force's plan. So all of these ideas that we have, whether it be policy change, incentive programs, education and awareness for the community, we need dollars to support that work. And so the funds that will be raised from this tax will go specifically for those ideas and strategies. The great thing about the way the policy was written, so half of the money that'll be generated every year from the tax will go towards work in the communities that are most impacted by climate change, and that's explicitly written. So there was a lot of work done to ensure that we are designated funding that comes in through this tax to support the people that need the most supports because they haven't had those in place, or they live in a community that is more impacted by climate change. Some things to note too is that the tax won't apply to the food that you might buy at the grocery store when you go fill up your car with gas, the water you might purchase. So you won't be paying more for those things that you need for your everyday life. It would rather be other things that a sales tax would be applicable to. And the interesting thing about this too is the money, you think about the money raised through a sales tax, it's people that live in Denver, but it's also people that come into Denver and visit. So we're able to generate a lot of different funding sources, not only from people in Denver, but with those that come and visit. So this kind of speaks to the recommendations in this process that we're going to get to Initiative 2A. So there was a 6-month stakeholder process in developing that plan, a lot of presentations to neighborhood groups, community associations, trying to get their support. And now we're in a place where we're asking voters to consider to vote yes for Proposition 2A. And so that's why I'm here today. I spoke to this a little bit before too, but the funding that comes in from this tax will be overseen by the office within Denver that houses all of this work. So just want to make sure that people understand and feel comfortable knowing that the money will actually go towards the work that is being outlined by the city through these recommendations. Here's a couple different organizations that have said they are supporting this measure. So you'll see those that represent environmental interests, but also community organizations, real estate and whatnot. And so I will pause there because I've talked a lot and I want to see what questions you all have, and I'm going to stop sharing my screen.
Thanks so much, Naomi. There's a lot of information in a really short period of time, but hopefully helpful. Does anyone have any questions for Naomi about the Climate Action Task Force or Proposition 2A that she's explaining?
I do. This is Dolores. So on top of the tax that we pay now per $10, you're going to add 2.5 cents to that. So instead of 8% tax, it'll look more like 11, something like
No,
that.
no.
No, oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Well, it does sound, it's actually 0.25. Did you want to explain that, Naomi?
Yes, it is 0.25% sales tax increase. So that would only be 0.25 in addition to what the current sales tax is. So the example that we've been giving is if you think about a $10 purchase you might make for something that's not food, you would be paying 0.25 cents to go towards this climate fund of that total $10 expense.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Dolores. That's a great way to address that. That's really good.
I see Phyllis put in the comment. It looks like you addressed that, Eugene, too. Phyllis, do you have any other questions on the impact of Denver residents?
Unmute, Phyllis.
Oh, okay.
There's-
I can stick around if anyone wants to send me a chat with any questions.
That'd be great. I appreciate that.
Okay.
Any additional questions for Naomi about Proposition 2A? Okay. All right. Well, she is going to stick around. Thank you so much, Naomi, for all that information. And thank you for the presentation. We'll hold on to that and this video, everyone, so you can go back and reference it. At this time, I want to introduce Cleo Breeze and also welcome State Representative Janet Buckner, who's with us. Thank you, Janet, for being here. Yeah, amen. So Cleo is on, and she's going to open up and give way to Representative Buckner.
Oh, I was wondering what you were going to say I was going to do. I was getting nervous. Anyway, it's my pleasure to introduce you all, and I'm sure most of you know her, is our state representative, soon to be our Senator, Janet Buckner.
Hi, everybody. Good Sunday morning. I am so sorry I'm late, but I was doing a similar presentation to another group of people this morning because these ballot initiatives are a lot, and it's a lot of information. And I am just loving seeing everybody. I love church on Sunday, but it's so much fun to see everyone. And hey, Dolores. And Dorothy, and oh my gosh, I see everybody. So thank you for coming to hear about these ballot initiatives today. And if you have questions afterwards, you can always call me on my cell phone or call me at home, and I will go over any questions you might have. But this is probably the most ballot initiatives we have ever had. And the Blue Book, which all of you received, the Blue Book has all of the information, but it's still a little bit confusing on some of these initiatives. So I'm going to give you some objectives and give you kind of a bird's eye view of some of these initiatives. I'll try not to give too much of my personal opinion, but some of these are very tricky and some of these are worded in such a way as to confuse people. So the right can pass some initiatives that they've been wanting to pass. So with that being said, we're going to start with the first amendment, which is Amendment B, and that is whether we should repeal the Gallagher Amendment. I am hearing from the majority of the state that we should vote yes on this Gallagher Amendment, because what it's going to do is over time, it will direct more revenue to local schools. We all know our schools are in trouble. We do not have enough money, and especially after COVID, we are in deep trouble with funding our schools. So over time, this money will be directed to schools without raising property taxes. And trust me, I've been asked this question, I don't know how many times. It will not increase your property taxes. The Gallagher Amendment was passed, the original Gallagher Amendment was passed in the 1980s, and it's out of date now, and it has skewed the tax assessment of residential property in Colorado, which results in significant shortfalls for school districts. So this one is a safe yes. Are there any questions on that one before I go on to the next one?
So Janet, we kind of have to be nonpartisan. So just a reminder.
Oh, okay. I'll try to be nonpartisan. Uh-oh. Okay. Okay. Well, okay, here's how we're going to be nonpartisan. Yes. Yes, will yes, will allow all assessments for all property taxes to remain the same as they are now. Okay? No would result in decreasing residential assessment rates over time and in automatic local mill levy increases. So Reverend Downing, I will try to stay as nonpartisan as possible. Are there any questions on the Gallagher Amendment? But just remember,
Yes.
it was passed in 1980 and things have changed a lot over the years.
Which which ballot measure are you talking about?
That's Amendment B.
Amendment B.
Amendment B, yes.
Okay, we gotta find
And it's whether or not we should repeal the Gallagher Amendment. And the Gallagher Amendment has been in effect since 1980. And unfortunately, money that goes to the schools, to the fire departments, to the hospitals, etc., those funds have been getting lower and decreasing because of the Gallagher Amendment.
I have a question. Will the residential property tax be handled the same way as the commercial? And the thing that was confusing to me is I don't know how the state computes commercial property taxes. So my feeling was that our residential property taxes could shoot up considerably.
No, they will not shoot up. No, not if you vote yes, they will not go up. No, I can't say that because a result of voting no would be decreasing residential assessment rates over time. So that's the best I can tell you on that matter. Does that help clarify it just a little bit?
Well, can you explain how the state computes commercial property tax? Because the amendment mentions that about to maintain the state proportion of residential property as compared to other taxable property. And I think the other taxable property would be commercial property.
Yeah, so Phyllis, that's a really great question.
That's a great question. And Phyllis, what I can do is give you some more information offline if you like, if you give me your cell phone number. But the way it's computed is very, very technical. And to be honest, I don't know if I can answer that question as technically as you would like. So can I give you my cell phone number? It's 303-902-8692. And I will have somebody from the Bell Policy Center call you because they are the experts when it comes to how all of this is calculated. And I don't want to tell you something that I cannot back up.
Okay, I appreciate that.
You're welcome, Phyllis.
And I'm going to add to the chat, Phyllis, a link to the property assessment website. And you
Yes.
can, if you're from your phone, you might not be able to catch it, but I'll email that to you as well.
Thank you.
And yes, and you, I'm a state representative and I know the basics of many of these, but I do not have expertise in calculations, etc. That's really technical, and I just don't want to give you any information that's not correct, Phyllis. So thank you, Reverend Downing, as well. Property assessments are really interesting. I've talked to the local assessor out here in Arapahoe County, and he said that to the general public, it's really confusing. So I will get back to you, Phyllis. Okay, can we move on to Amendment C?
Yep.
Okay, we call this one at the Capitol, we've been calling this the Bingo Raffle Alliance Approval. And voting yes will allow nonprofit organizations in Colorado for 3 years to apply for a bingo raffle license. And if you vote yes on this, then that will allow bingo raffle licensings for 3 years for those organizations who want to have bingo.
Wow.
And it allows workers to receive compensation up to minimum wage. A no vote would mean that bingo raffle licenses would have to be done every 5 years or 5 years prior to applying for a bingo raffle license. And that workers must be unpaid volunteers. Yes would mean that minimum wage for workers who want to work in these bingo organizations. No would mean unpaid volunteers who are members of the nonprofit organization. So that's a pretty easy one, and you can make that decision on your own. Any questions on bingo? Okay, G46. B52. Okay, you don't see any humor in that. Okay, we will.
Sorry, we missed it, Janet.
They probably laughed. We're all just muted.
No, I know.
I got
At the state capitol, we were really making fun of this one when we were going over all the amendments. Okay, 76. This one, in my opinion, was put on the ballot to cause confusion. A yes vote means that a yes vote would mean that we would change constitutional language to specify that only United States citizens 18 and older are eligible to participate in Colorado elections. No would mean the current constitutional language allowing every eligible United States citizen to vote in Colorado elections will remain the same. We're not doing anything illegal right now. So why would we change this amendment? So it was put on the ballot for confusion. And here's what frustrates me. And this is just my personal opinion. This amendment seems to make simple changes to the Constitution, but the side effects can be really problematic. I believe this is a racist measure, and it relies on the mistaken presumption that Colorado law allows non-citizens to vote, and we know that's not true. Yes. Yeah. So.
Can I add something?
Yes.
I think this is a perfect example of often they're written and they're very, very confusing. And this is one that is confusing.
Yes.
So you have to be very, very careful in this one.
Very, very careful on this one. And all the legislators had to sit in on explanations of all of these measures, statewide measures. And you're right, Cleo, this one was written to confuse, and we do not need to change the Constitution, because everything in the Constitution right now about voting is just that. Anyone can vote if you are of the right age, and if you are a citizen. That's the way it's always been. Okay, let's move on to amendment number 77. This is
I do have one question about the last one. If this is just a repeat, or it doesn't change the Constitution, then why was it put on the ballot? Doesn't the state have a review person who judges the validity of an amendment?
There are organizations out there who spend millions and millions of dollars to get an amendment on the ballot. And that's what they have done in this situation. I mean, if you have the money, you can get anything on the ballot.
Huh, enough said.
Yes, I'm trying to be nonpartisan, but that is the truth. Yes, and in a minute, you'll see some other amendments that were able to get enough votes to go on the ballot. And it costs money to do this, lots of money. Okay, let's go on to number 77. This is a pretty simple amendment. This amendment will allow voters in Colorado's 3 gambling towns to vote to increase the maximum single bet allowed for any game beyond the current statewide limit of $100. It would let those 3 cities who have gambling to increase the minimum single bet to $100. Additionally, voters can approve games other than those currently allowed by Colorado law. If you vote yes, the casinos will be able to increase or remove casino bet limits. If you vote no, this means that current casino bet limits and games will remain in the Constitution, and a statewide vote will continue to be required to make any changes to these restrictions. Another part of this is we know about gaming revenue, and some of the gaming revenue is used to support student retention and credentialing completed by students enrolled in community colleges. And most people don't know this part of this amendment because I did not know this.
Wow.
Money is funneled in so many different ways, but with this particular ballot or this amendment, this additional money would be used to improve student retention and kids in community colleges. So yes or no is your choice. Okay, this one.
I'm sorry, Janet. I'm sorry. Was that EE?
No, that's 77.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
77 is the gambling that would it would funnel more money into the student retention program for students in community colleges.
If you vote no.
If you vote yes.
Okay.
Yeah, if you vote
Thank
yes.
you.
You're welcome. And they word these so sometimes no seems like it should be yes. And Dolores, you're right. Yeah, but 77 is for the gambling to increase the maximum single bet. And more money would be funneled into community colleges. Okay, Proposition EE is a tough one. Okay. Proposition EE increases the current 40% in taxes on cigarettes and other tobacco products to 62% by 2027.
Wow.
Yeah. This measure would also tax e-cigarettes. Yeah, and I'm going to give you probably more information than most people, but I really want you to have the right information for this particular proposition. A yes on this proposal would increase the taxes to those high rates I was just telling you about, and the new tax revenue will be spent on education, housing, tobacco prevention, healthcare, and preschool. However, we know our schools need the revenue, but according to Wellington Webb, and he just wrote a beautiful article in the Urban Spectrum about this tax, about this Proposition EE. The way this is being advertised is to get more money in our schools for preschool. And our beloved Anna Jo Haynes helped with this proposition because we need more money in our preschool setting, especially for kids of color. So yes, we would get more money for kids of color. However, this proposition is going to give the legislature a blank check to spend on unidentified projects because it's not specific in the bill where this money will really go. I have such mixed emotions about this Proposition EE. Wellington Webb believes that the Proposition EE money will not go to the preschools for 2.5 years. Now, here's the other issue with this tax. Whether you believe in smoking or not, this is going to increase the cost of cigarettes, discount cigarettes, packages of them, from $4 to $7 a pack. We all know that the largest percentage of people who smoke are low-income adults. This is a tough one because the tobacco industry is behind this proposition, and they're going to make the profits, as we know, from this proposition if it passes. So it's up to you, no matter how you feel about smoking, if we should tax the cigarettes that much more per pack. And I'm having a really difficult time making a decision on which way I'm voting on this Proposition EE. But do know that it is going to target a lot of low-income people. When I found out this proposition was coming, I had some friends who smoke say, Janet, are you going to raise the pack of my Cools and my menthol cigarettes? And that's not my decision because we know that smoking is not good. I would prefer that they take the money and have programs in, especially the Black communities, about the effects of smoking. But that's not in this proposition. It's not in there. So if you believe that this money will go to the schools, which Anna Jo Haynes really believes that this money will go to the preschools, then you would vote yes. If you vote no, everything will stay the same and there will be no new taxes on nicotine or vaping products. So this is a really difficult bill in which you have to make an educated decision. So if you want to look in the Urban Spectrum and look at Wellington Webb's comments, that would be a good reference. And Anna Jo Haynes, who I dearly love and who has been an early childhood advocate forever, she really believes that we need this additional money to go into the preschool programs, which we know are in trouble. So with that, I know I need to move on to the next.
Really quickly before we move on,
Yes.
I put the link. This is Javon. I put the link to the op-ed from the Spectrum in the chat. So if anybody wants to check that out, it's there. Then I see that Naomi has her hand up.
Yes, and I don't want to take too much time. And Representative Buckner, she did a great job speaking to whether folks might have concerns. I just wanted to offer if folks do have questions. I work for an organization that's supporting, so I'm not here to advocate. But if anyone does want more information, just send me a message and I can talk to you offline or connect you to folks on the campaign that could help maybe answer and address some of the things that Representative Buckner raised. I just wanted to offer that to the group.
Thank you, Naomi, because I know
Thanks,
how
Naomi.
I feel. I'm just trying to stay neutral on this call because Reverend Downing wants this to be a neutral call. So I have my opinion, so that's a great idea.
Yes,
This is state law. I'm just trying to keep up.
I know, me too. I'm trying hard.
And
Okay.
lastly, you guys, I know it's neither here nor they're $7 and $8 a pack more toward the east, and people are
Yes.
still buying them.
Yes, they are.
Yeah.
You're
that's how
right.
much-
Thank you, Dolores. They are.
Yep.
Yeah. So we need the money in early childhood. Just remember that. Okay. 113, pretty easy.
Oh.
This is to adopt the agreement to elect United States presidents by national popular vote. I can tell you, and this is nonpartisan, that this is trending really well because we know that the winner of the national vote is always elected president, but right-wing special interests are trying to overturn the legislature's actions. And so a yes vote affirms this law as signed by the governor. So national popular vote is crucial, especially for people of color.
Can I add something?
Yes.
A good example of that is if the popular vote had been used in the last election,
Thank
we
you,
would not
Cleo.
have the president that we have now.
Thank you. Thank you
Oh,
for
was that
adding that.
nonpartisan?
Yes. 113. Okay. 114. This directs the Colorado Parks and Wildlife Commission to reintroduce and manage the population of gray wolves in special areas of the state by the end of 2023. Yeah, they would reintroduce gray wolves in Colorado. Now, there is a lot of money that would go, millions of dollars that would go into this reintroduction and management of gray wolves. So just keep that in mind. It's going to cost double-figure millions to do this program. That's all I'm going to say. Okay, Proposition 115. This is a very confusing proposition as well. This would prohibit abortions after 22 weeks. This was placed on the ballot by Citizens Initiatives programs. They spent a fortune to give this bill to the state of Colorado. Currently, the state of Colorado believes in a woman's right to make her decision with her family, her doctor, and her family. And I always say, and with her God, because that's how I feel. Now, that's just my personal opinion. If this bill passes, it would prohibit abortions in Colorado after 22 weeks gestational age, except when an abortion is immediately required to save the life of a pregnant woman. This bill, if you vote yes, will also criminalize the doctor who provided the procedure. A no vote on this bill would continue to keep everything as it is, which means that abortions, if you vote no, means that abortion in Colorado continues to be legal at any time during a pregnancy. Now, keep in mind that there are many women who go further than 22 weeks, and a little bit later in their pregnancy, they find out that their baby has died in the womb. If this bill passes, the woman would have to carry that baby full term, even though the baby is not viable. So just keep that in mind.
Yeah, I would add there, Janet, that so Rabbi Joe Black and his wife,
Yes.
Temple Emmanuel, have been, I think, very, how would we say, transparent about having a pregnancy in their marriage where the baby had contracted a illness that basically would have done just what you just said.
You're right.
And so they had to make a very critical and sensitive decision, but were able to do what you said, meaning make a decision with their faith, their family in mind, in light of what was life-threatening. And naturally, none of us want to have to make that kind of decision.
Right.
But should, the term of trying to bring a life into the world take fatal consequences, I believe I agree with Rabbi Black that it should be to an individual's own faith, belief, and decision in their family to be able to come to the conclusion about what they're going to do. So.
Right. And thank you for bringing that up, because Rabbi Black has a commercial on TV saying just that. So what has happened with this proposition of millions and millions and millions of dollars were spent to get this proposition back on the books again. And there are many women who are unfortunately in a situation because of incest. I know of someone who was raped by their uncle, and she decided that she just could not cope with carrying that baby. So what would she do if this bill passed? Unfortunately, it would create more back alley abortions. Not that I believe in abortions, but that's up to the individual and her family and her doctor. So that's Proposition 115. A lot to keep in mind with this. And if any of you want to call me off after this and discuss this, I have more details. But because I want to stay neutral on this, even though I don't want to stay neutral, but I should, I can give you more details. Yes, this is targeting the Black community considerably, and we need to put more money into reproductive education in the state of Colorado, and that's what we should do. Okay.
I think, Janet, before you move, I think a nonpartisan statement there is that we also know that African-American infant mortality rate is like 6 times that of our white counterparts. And so I think you're right that this bill, though it may not sound like it, it unfortunately does have some racial implications.
Yes, it does.
And I think even as far as our faith is concerned, that we do know that there is quite a bit of language out there that would attempt to take bills like this one, EE, and maybe even some others, and appeal to our faith without looking at our faith as a whole. Sort
exactly.
Of taking maybe a slant of our faith and suggesting, well, we don't believe in this. Well, we believe that God is love at first. We believe God sent his only son second. And so I think it's important for all of us to look at the whole picture when we consider these bills that have religious implications, and be reminded that, as Representative Buckner, I was going to say Senator, so I'm just going to say it. Senator Buckner,
right.
That's right, has shared with us that there's a lot of money put into these bills, and sometimes even when there are religious organizations backing them, they're not necessarily a nonpartisan and or objective approach. And so I think it's important. I thank you for sharing that, Janet.
Okay, just one moment. Hold on, please.
No.
Oh.
Cleo, anything you wanted to add while Janet?
I'm sorry.
And also remind everybody, Naomi Amaha is still on the line. from the climate action bill as well.
Yes. Yeah, this 115, the abortion bill, was put on there as a guilt trip. So just keep that in mind as well. 116, this is in my opinion, irresponsible tax cut proposal that would result in state budget cuts of 236 million this year, up to 2 billion in the next 10 years. And this is just an irresponsible tax cut proposal. And large businesses and people with incomes over $500 million per year will receive 70% of the benefit from this tax reduction. In other words, 116 won't help any of us, and no would keep the income tax rate unchanged. And just know that if you vote yes, the people with a lot of money are just going to keep making more money, and I don't make that kind of money. So 116 is, just a minute, Jennifer. 116 is going to help the wealthy. Okay, 117. 117, once again, 117, if you vote no, it retains the state legislature's authority to create new enterprises under this law. Yes would require state government enterprises with fee revenue over $100 million in the first 5 years. Yeah, yes is for the rich as well. So a no on this would mean retaining what we currently have for new enterprises under the current law. Big money was able to get this on the ballot. 118, and I know I'm going too long on a lot of this. 118 is so important. 118 would establish a paid family and medical leave benefit for most Colorado workers.
Oh, wow.
This one is so important. I just think it's a basic employee's right to have paid family and medical leave. I'll be out in about 15 minutes. Okay, sorry. Okay. Many other states have implemented this program. And right now, you should know this. The reason we need this bill is because right now, 80% of Colorado workers don't have access to paid family leave. Isn't that awful?
Wow,
80%.
80?
80%. And we know right now with COVID,
yeah,
we have to have paid family and medical leave.
So, and I would add to that, Janet, in fact, that came up during the Climate Action Task Force because we learned that 80% of frontline workers in Colorado are people of color.
Yes.
So if 80% of Colorado workers don't have paid family leave and 80% of Colorado workers are on frontline jobs with people of color, that means this is us basically.
Right, this is us.
Americans, immigrant populations, indigenous populations, and so on.
And the other beautiful part about this proposal is this measurement would fund up to 12 weeks or 16 weeks in certain circumstances of paid leave to workers for a range of qualifying circumstances. So this bill, I mean, this proposal and this proposition 118 is crucial, especially for people of color, since we are the largest percentage of essential workers, nurses, nursing home workers, home health care workers. This is crucial, and we worked so hard to get this on the ballot. So this is crucial.
Is this a bipartisan bill here, Janet, or proposition, or no?
No.
Wow.
No, it wasn't.
Sad.
We fought really hard for this.
Yeah,
I
well,
passed the equal pay for equal work bill. And I was also a co-sponsor of this bill trying to pass paid family leave, but we couldn't get to it during COVID. So fortunately, we were able to get it on the ballot, and it is important.
So yes, does guarantee.
Yes, guarantees. Hey, thank you for saying that, Dolores, because sometimes no means yes.
Hey, that's what I'm saying here.
And in this situation, this is a yes. If any of you want me to email you, I have a quick reference sheet, real quick, like 2 or 3 sentences for each one of these amendments and propositions. It was created by Progress Now, which is a bipartisan group. So if any of you want me to email you this quick reference sheet, let me know.
Is it possible that Dr. Downing could put that on the web page?
I can't, and I can't.
No, I said Dr. Downing.
We probably shouldn't.
Oh, okay.
Because this one really isn't bipartisan.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, this group that put these this quick reference sheet together, it was done by this organization called Progress Now, so it would not be considered a bipartisan group. But I can email it to each of you individually, or I can email it to Reverend Downing or to Cleo, and if you want to send this out to others, you may.
Well, would you send it to me, Janet, please?
Yes, what's your email address?
CWIN1, CEEWIND1 at AOL.com.
Got it. I'll do that because it's a quick reference sheet and it just breaks it down for you.
And I have one quick question.
Yes.
How does that affect small businesses, or does it?
Great question, Dolores. Great question. This is why we couldn't get it out of the legislature, because the Republicans felt that it did not help small business. But I have to look at my notes here. Hold on here. Let's see. Oh, it's too long to read.
I can check with you later.
Okay, can you check with me later? Because
yes,
we wrote it in such a way that small business is working in concert with their employees. We don't want small businesses to go out of business, but we don't want workers to stay home and not get paid because they're sick. And especially with COVID, can you imagine? You've had COVID, you've only been home 5 days, you're feeling better, but you're still contagious, but you go back to work because you know you need the income. That's one of the reasons we wrote this bill, is because we don't want people coming to work sick, but we want them to be paid. So Dolores, I can send you some more information, and that's a great question.
Janet, this is Betty. New Era also put out I guess similar to what you're talking about,
yes,
about petition bills too.
They
and
sure
it's real
did.
short. It makes sense.
Thank
It's
you.
real understand.
You know what? Thank you. New Era did it. Yeah. And Betty, this one is New Era and Progress Now. Exactly. So it's the same one. Yes.
All right.
It's excellent. It is excellent.
It really is.
And I'm going to send that to Cleo as soon as we hang up. Oh, here, let me get this one too for Jennifer. Okay, Jennifer Gill. I'm going to send one to you too.
Okay.
And I'll put your email address in the chat, Janet.
Would you please?
Yeah.
And that way, if any of you want it, I'll send it out to you before the end of the day today. Reverend Downing, I tried to stay bipartisan, but it's hard because so many of these bills really do affect people of color and senior citizens. And I'm a senior citizen, I'm over 70 years old. So a lot of these bills affect all of us. And I was trying to be bipartisan, which we should be, but we also need to look out for each other's best interest. And so I will email this quick reference sheet to Jennifer Keel and to Cleo and to Reverend Downing.
All right, so Janet, as we get ready to wrap up, there are a couple of questions I want to give you. One question is, why does it take so long for Proposition 118 to become effective?
Yeah, because we have to prepare. This is kind of what Dolores was asking about. We have to let small businesses and all businesses get prepared to be able to pay their employees. So they have to get everything put in place so they can pay their employees, and that takes time. My neighbor is a small business owner, and she had a really hard time with this until I told her that it's not going to take a place until what, 2024, I think it is.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it won't take effect immediately, but this is a beginning.
I think that's great because, as you said, it's not as though then a business owner has this big tax increase to
Right.
which has often been the complaint when there are medical and or healthcare related issues or amendments proposed.
Right, and according to the way this is written, it's also going to, the employer has to work with their medical leave insurance program, so that's going to take time.
I think that, are there any other questions from any of the amendments that Representative Buckner covered, anyone? Or about Proposition 2A that Naomi shared with us? Any questions for Naomi or for Representative Buckner? All right. Well, we do have recorded this session, so it will be available on our YouTube channel. And then you might remember we had the Judicial Retention and Election Symposium, which is also on our YouTube channel. And both of those links, Javon, are those links on the website as well?
I'm not sure if they're on the website, but if you go to the YouTube page, they're there. So
Okay.
It's just like the worship services are available.
Right. Okay. And then we can get the link added, those links added to the website. Maybe we should just leave them where they are.
I think that's a good idea.
Yeah, so they'll be available on the YouTube channel. And then, of course, this is recorded, so you can go back and take a look at it anytime. Any final remarks, Naomi, that you wanted to share as we sign off